The classroom was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of machinery and the low growl reverberating from the Vosen hound's cage. The cadets, alien and human alike, sat in rigid rows, their eyes fixed on the massive creature behind the glass. At nearly 7 feet tall, with muscle piled on muscle and skin that shimmered like polished obsidian, the Vosen hound was an apex predator, a beast bred for war. Its glowing orange eyes locked on the room's occupants, scanning them for weakness, its nostrils flaring as it snorted angrily. But despite its terrifying appearance, no one in the room seemed as unfazed as Cole Adams. The young human sat in the back row, dressed in simple academy fatigues, his posture relaxed. He looked every bit the rookie in a room full of seasoned cadets from across the galaxy, cadets from worlds where war was a constant, where survival depended on strength, cunning, and the ability to intimidate. But Cole wasn't intimidated. He was staring directly at the Vosen hound, his eyes steady, not a hint of fear in his expression. His heart rate was calm, his breathing even. He wasn't like the others. The cadets' tension was palpable. They squirmed in their seats, glancing nervously at the beast and then at Cole, who was undeniably the only one not shaking. The instructor, a tall alien with 4 arms and a stern face, paced in front of the class, his voice cold and calculated. The Vosen hound is the perfect predator. It has been bred for one thing only: to hunt, to dominate. It is relentless, ruthless, and calculating. We are going to test your ability to assess dominance, to watch how the Vosen reacts to weakness. The cadets shifted nervously in their seats. Each of them knew the stories. The Vosen hound was responsible for countless deaths, its attacks brutal and merciless. The cadets had been briefed on the creature's abilities. It could sense weakness from miles away, and once it locked onto a target, it would not stop until it had ripped its prey apart. The instructor stopped packing and turned toward the cage. The growl from the hound deepened, vibrating the air with its intensity. This test is not just about surviving the hound. It is about showing dominance. You are to observe its behavior, look for signs of weakness, and recognize the signs of submission. He paused, his gaze falling on Cole. Cadet Adams, you will be the first to observe. Cole didn't react, didn't even flinch. He simply leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms, his eyes never leaving the creature in the cage. Do not look away, do not flinch, the instructor warned, his voice sharpening. This is the most dangerous test you will ever face. Cole finally spoke, his voice steady but soft enough that it only reached the instructors. It's not the hound that's dangerous, he said quietly. It's the fear. The cadets around him exchanged confused glances, unsure of what he meant. The instructor narrowed his eyes, but before he could comment, the cage door slid open with a hiss. The Vosen hound stalked out into the open, its massive body coiled with tension. It was a terrifying sight. The hound's eyes never left Cole, the orange glow of its pupils piercing through the air. The creature's jaw parted slightly, revealing rows of sharp teeth that could tear through metal. Its low growl reverberated in the floor beneath their feet, a sound that promised destruction. The cadets, one by one, began to shift uncomfortably, their eyes darting between Cole and the beast. Some clenched their fists, others fidgeted with their gear. They were all looking for weakness, and the human in the back row, small, unarmored, unassuming, was the perfect target. Look at him, one of the cadets muttered under his breath, just loud enough for Cole to hear. He's just waiting to die. The words were laced with ridicule, but Cole didn't respond. He didn't need to. The hound's attention was completely focused on him, its eyes never leaving his face. The instructor smirked, sensing the shift in the room. The Vosen hound has selected its target, he said, his tone cold. It's choosing to focus on the weakest. Let's see how it reacts when it senses weakness. A hush fell over the room. The cadets leaned forward, watching intently as the Vosen hound paced back and forth in front of Cole. The creature's breathing was slow and deliberate, each exhale leaving a mist on the glass separating them. It sniffed the air, its massive frame shifting with every step. Cole, for his part, didn't move. He didn't even blink. He was still, his hands resting on the armrests of the chair, his posture relaxed. He didn't show fear, he showed nothing. The Vosen hound stopped, its eyes locked on Cole's, unblinking, unyielding. For a moment the room felt like it held its breath. The hound growled softly, the sound deep and menacing, but Cole didn't flinch. He didn't even twitch. Don't move, the instructor hissed. Don't flinch, don't show weakness. The cadets exchanged uneasy glances, watching the beast's every move. The Vosen hound's ears twitched, and it took a cautious step forward, its massive body undulating with muscle. The air in the room grew heavier, the tension so thick that it felt like the entire academy was holding its breath. Then the unthinkable happened. The Vosen hound stopped. It tilted its head slowly as though confused. It sniffed the air again, but this time it didn't seem aggressive. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't showing the usual signs of dominance. Instead, it seemed uncertain. For the briefest moment, Cole thought he saw something in its eyes, something almost human. The growl stopped. The Vosen hound stepped back, its massive body rippling with tension. It was waiting, watching, analyzing. Cole didn't move, his eyes never leaving the creature's gaze. He had given it nothing to latch onto, nothing to attack. There was no fear, no weakness. The Vosen hound couldn't sense anything to dominate. A strange stillness filled the room. The instructors stared, their faces a mix of disbelief and confusion. The cadets shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to make of the situation. The beast, this perfect predator, was hesitant. The instructor's voice broke the silence. "This is impossible," he muttered. It's not attacking." Cole's gaze never wavered from the hound. He could feel the tension in the air, the strange pull of dominance that was both powerful and fragile. "It's not about fear," he said quietly, as if speaking to the hound, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's about understanding. You're not the only one who knows what it feels like to be trapped." The cadets were stunned. "What is he saying?" one of them whispered. But Cole didn't care. The room, the cadets, the instructors, they were all secondary to the connection he had made with the beast. He stood slowly, keeping his eyes locked on the hound, and for the first time the Vosen hound didn't lunge at him. It didn't snap its jaws. Instead, it just stood there, still and silent, its orange eyes watching him. And in that moment, Cole knew one thing for sure. He had tamed the beast, not through strength or technology, but through something far more powerful: trust. The room was thick with disbelief as the Vosen hound, a creature that had been bred to kill and destroy, sat in front of Cole Adams, no longer a predator but something else entirely. The cadets stared, their eyes wide with shock, while the instructors exchanged confused, heated whispers behind the observation glass. They had all seen the Vosen hound tear through training simulations, slaughtering unarmed cadets in seconds, but now it was sitting, waiting, watching Cole with a strange, almost respectful gaze. Cole didn't flinch, he didn't smile. He just stood there calm, measured, as though everything had gone exactly as he expected. His heart beat in a steady rhythm, the adrenaline of the moment passing in waves, but his mind was clear. The instructor, a stern and powerful alien named Rital, stood motionless, her arms crossed in front of her chest. She was studying Cole with an intensity that spoke of both admiration and suspicion. Finally, she broke the silence. "What did you do?" Rital's voice was cold, calculating. There was no accusation in her tone, but the question hung heavy in the air, demanding an answer. Cole glanced over at the Vosen hound, which hadn't moved. The creature's eyes were still locked on him, but there was no hunger in them now, no aggression, just a quiet acknowledgement. "I didn't do anything," Cole said simply, his voice steady. "I didn't fight it, I just showed it that I'm not prey." Rital's brow furrowed as she processed his words. "You expect me to believe that?" she asked, her voice sharp. "A creature like that, bred for millennia to hunt, to destroy, suddenly just obeys you? Why?" Cole didn't answer immediately. He stepped forward, the Vosen hound's gaze never leaving him. Slowly, carefully, he extended his hand, palm facing upward. The room held its collective breath. The Vosen hound's massive head turned slightly, its nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air around him. For a moment it stood completely still, its muscles twitching. It took a slow step forward, eyes fixed on Cole, before lowering its head just enough for its snout to hover inches from his hand. The cadets watched, some of them leaning forward in disbelief, others still frozen in fear. The beast, this apex predator that had brought entire worlds to their knees, was now responding to a human with trust. Cole exhaled slowly. It recognizes scars when it sees them. It knows what pain feels like. Rital stepped forward, her face hard with skepticism. "Pain doesn't stop a Vosen hound. The only thing that stops it is power, a display of dominance. You've done nothing to show your power." Cole shook his head, his expression unwavering. "It's not about power, it's about understanding. This creature, like me, has been shaped by its past. It wasn't born to be a killer, it was made to be one. But we're both the same. We've both been shaped by pain." A murmur rippled through the cadets. Rital narrowed her eyes. Are you saying that you understand this creature? I understand it better than anyone here, Cole said, his voice cutting through the tension. He looked back at the Vosen hound, which was still crouched in front of him, its head low. I didn't make it submit. I just showed it that I'm not afraid. The room was silent now, every cadet hanging on his every word. Finally, Rital spoke, her voice almost a whisper. You're a fool if you think that's enough. It won't stay calm forever. The Vosen hound is a weapon, not a pet. I'm not trying to tame it, Cole said quietly. I'm trying to survive it. The silence stretched on for a moment before the instructor gestured toward the exit. The test is over. You've passed. For now. Cole didn't react to the instructor's words. Instead, he turned his attention back to the Vosen hound, which was still watching him with those piercing orange eyes. The creature's body was still tense, its muscles coiled as if ready to spring at any moment, but it didn't move. Let's go, Cole said, his voice calm, as if speaking to an old friend. To his surprise, the hound did not lunge. It merely turned slowly and walked back toward its cage, its heavy footsteps echoing in the room. The cadets remained silent, watching as the beast disappeared into the holding area, still eyeing Cole as though it was unsure of what to make of the human standing there. Part 3, A New Understanding. In the days that followed, Cole became something of a curiosity at the academy. Whispers about his encounter with the Vosen hound spread like wildfire, and soon he was the subject of intense scrutiny. The cadets looked at him with a mix of awe, fear, and confusion. Some of them still mocked him behind his back, calling him the Beast Whisperer. But deep down, they all knew one thing: Cole had done the impossible. Even the instructors, those who had seen it all, were shaken. Rital watched him carefully, noting every interaction, every subtle shift in his demeanor. She had been the one to oversee the test and had expected Cole to fail spectacularly. She had been prepared to see the Vosen hound tear him apart. Instead, she had seen something else, something far more troubling. Cole wasn't afraid, and that fact alone unnerved her. One evening, after a particularly grueling training session, Rital found herself standing outside Cole's quarters, her thoughts swirling. She had come to a decision, and now she needed to speak to him. She pressed the button to summon him, her eyes scanning the darkened hall. A few moments later, the door slid open, and Cole stood in the doorway, his face expressionless as always, but his eyes sharp, alert. He hadn't been expecting her. Cadet Adams, Rital began, her voice serious, I need to speak with you. Cole nodded and stepped aside to allow her in. What about? Rital walked past him into the room, her eyes taking in the simple but functional quarters. You've done something no one else here can explain. You've tamed the Vosen hound, and in doing so, you've challenged everything we know about dominance, about survival. Cole closed the door behind her. I didn't tame it, I just showed it that we're not so different. Rital turned to face him. You're not like the others, you don't think like them. You've given the Vosen hound something it's never had before, understanding. And now I wonder if that's dangerous. I don't know, Cole said, his voice low. But I know I'm not the one who should be afraid. Rital's eyes narrowed. You think this makes you immune to what happens next? The Academy won't just let this slide, Cadet. The political pressure, the military interests, it's all too much. I didn't ask for this, Cole replied. But now that I've made it this far, I'll take whatever comes next. I won't back down. Rital stared at him for a long moment, as if weighing the consequences of his words. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer now. You're in deeper than you realize. The Vosen hound wasn't just a test. It was a warning. They will come for you. Cole didn't flinch. He simply looked at her, his expression unwavering. Let them come, he said, his voice steady. I'm ready. Cole's confidence hung in the air like a challenge, an unspoken dare for anyone who might try to break him. Rital, however, saw something deeper in his eyes, something she couldn't quite decipher. You're different, she said quietly, her voice now betraying a hint of respect, even admiration. Not just in your handling of the hound, but the way you move, the way you think. Cole shrugged, his expression unchanged. I'm just here to make it through, whatever it is. Rital frowned, her mind running through the implications of what had happened in the training chamber. She couldn't ignore the fact that Cole had done something extraordinary, something far beyond the abilities of the typical cadet. The Vosen hound, one of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures, had not only spared him, it had submitted to him, and that was not something she could easily dismiss. You've earned a reputation here, she continued, her gaze hardening as she studied him. But that reputation comes with a price. There are those who won't let this go. You've proven yourself to be a threat. A threat to who? Cole asked, his brow furrowing. I'm just trying to survive here. I don't want to be anyone's threat. That's not how it works here, Rital said, her tone sharp. Survival is one thing, dominating the beast is another. People in power won't like what you've done. You've made a statement, and not everyone here sees that as impressive. Some will see it as a challenge to their authority. Cole met her gaze, his jaw set. Then let them come. I've dealt with worse. Rital stared at him for a moment, her mind turning over the possibilities. She had never encountered a cadet quite like Cole Adams. His lack of fear wasn't arrogance. It was something far more profound. It was understanding. Perhaps it was the very thing that had allowed him to connect with the Vosen Hound, but now it might also be the thing that made him a target. I'm telling you this because you need to understand the stakes, she said, her voice lowering. The Academy can't let you set a precedent like this. If they think you can control the Hound, they'll test you further. You'll be pushed into situations that will challenge everything you believe in. Cole's lips tightened, but he didn't look away. He had been through worse, he knew. The Academy's politics, its hierarchy, none of it mattered. He wasn't here for approval or recognition. He was here to survive. I'll take whatever they throw at me, he said firmly. You think I came here unprepared? This is just another test. I'll pass it. Rital seemed to study him for a moment longer before sighing. You have more courage than anyone I've ever seen, and more determination. But it's not enough to survive here. You're going to need allies. Is that an offer? Cole asked. The commander's eyes flickered with something unreadable, but she quickly masked it with a hardened expression. Maybe, but not everyone here will be willing to help you. Some will see you as a threat, others as an opportunity. You need to be careful. People will try to manipulate you. Cole nodded. I can handle it. I'm not here to play games. For the first time, Rital allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Maybe you're not, but you'll need more than your instincts if you're going to survive this place. The real test isn't taming the beast, it's surviving what comes next. Part 4, The Challenge. The next few days at the Academy passed in a blur. The rumors about Cole's encounter with the Vosen Hound spread like wildfire. Some cadets avoided him completely, giving him wide berth in the hallways. Others watched him from a distance, their curiosity obvious, though they dared not approach. But some were not content to simply watch. And when Cole received an encrypted message from an anonymous source inviting him to a special training session, he knew what was coming. That night, as the stars outside the Academy's observation windows flickered like pinpricks of light, Cole made his way to the designated location, a secluded training arena deep in the Academy's underground levels. He had no idea who had summoned him, but the message was clear. This wasn't a friendly meeting. As he entered the arena, the door behind him slid shut with a heavy thud, the sound echoing through the empty space. The room was dark, the only light coming from a single overhead panel. In the center of the room stood several figures, their faces obscured by shadow. Cole took a step forward, his gaze scanning the space. It was clear that he was not alone. He wasn't just walking into a standard training exercise. This was something else entirely. Cadet Adams, a voice called from the darkness. It was deep, rich with authority. We've been watching you. We've seen what you did in the Vosen Hound chamber, and we're impressed. Cole's eyes narrowed, his body tense as he surveyed the group. He knew what was coming. Who are you? He asked, his voice steady. You'll find that out soon enough, the voice replied, amusement lacing its tone. But for now, let's just say we're interested in your potential. The Vosen Hound was only the beginning. We have bigger challenges in mind. Cole's heart rate remained steady, his posture unyielding. What do you want from me? The figure stepped forward, the dim light catching the sharp outline of their face. The voice belonged to a tall alien with dark, glossy skin and bright yellow eyes. We want to see how far you're willing to go. We want to test your limits to see if you truly understand the power you've gained. And we need someone who can control the uncontrollable. Cole's mind raced. This wasn't a test, it was an invitation to a war he hadn't asked for. He knew exactly what they were offering, a chance to prove his power, to dominate in ways that went beyond the Academy's expectations. But that wasn't what he wanted. He wasn't here to play their games, he was here to survive. Let's get this over with, Cole said, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. "You don't need to explain it to me. I'm not interested in your games." The alien with yellow eyes smiled, a predatory grin that sent a chill down Cole's spine. "Very well, then let the games begin." Part 5, Unseen Forces. The game began without warning. The lights in the arena flashed on, blinding Cole for a moment. Then all at once, the floor beneath his feet shifted. He stumbled slightly, his eyes scanning the room as the walls seemed to close in. The space was no longer an empty training hall. It had transformed into a maze of traps and obstacles designed to test his every limit. Cole's instincts kicked in immediately. He couldn't afford to hesitate, not here, not now. He had to think on his feet. With a swift motion, he surveyed the nearest obstacle, a wall of sharp, jagged metal spikes rising from the ground. "Move fast or you'll get stuck," a voice said, seemingly coming from the walls themselves. "The test begins now." Cole took a deep breath, focusing. This wasn't just about survival. It was about proving to them, to everyone watching, that he was more than just a human cadet. He was capable of surviving anything. He darted forward, leaping over the first set of spikes with barely a second to spare, then sliding under another, narrowly avoiding the deadly metal tips. The maze wasn't just physical, it was psychological, testing his resolve and his ability to stay calm under pressure. Every corner held a new challenge, and Cole didn't flinch. His body moved like a machine, every movement deliberate, every step calculated. But as he neared the end of the maze, he felt a shift. It wasn't just the walls closing in, it was the weight of the eyes watching him. He could feel it now. The cadets, the instructors, they weren't just observing, they were waiting for him to fail. And that's exactly what he refused to do. The next few days after the Vose and Hound test were quiet. Too quiet. The academy seemed to have suspended its usual bustle, as if holding its breath, waiting for something. The cadets who had once avoided Cole now whispered behind his back, casting furtive glances his way whenever they passed. The Vose and Hound encounter had made him a legend in the academy, but it was a legend that carried weight, dangerous weight. Cole didn't mind the whispers. He wasn't here to make friends, nor was he interested in the political maneuvering of the academy's more powerful students. The Vose and Hound had chosen him, and that was enough, or so he told himself. But despite his calm, the implications of what had happened in the chamber were beginning to settle in. Rital had been right. Cole had made an enemy of the academy the moment he'd tamed the beast. Or, at least, he had made himself a challenge that no one could ignore. It wasn't long before Cole received an invitation, one that would change everything. The message came late one night while Cole was in his quarters, quietly going over his lessons. The text was simple, brief. "Cadet Adams, meet me in the lower training chambers at midnight. There are things we need to discuss." The signature was cryptic, just a set of coordinates. Cole didn't hesitate. He had learned by now that the academy's secrets weren't revealed in the open. If he wanted to understand what was happening, to uncover the true nature of the power he had unknowingly tapped into, he would have to take the next step. By midnight, Cole had made his way to the designated chamber. The long, echoing corridors were eerily quiet, the only sound the rhythmic clank of his boots against the metal floor. The air felt colder here, the atmosphere thick with the weight of unseen eyes. As he neared the chamber, the door slid open without a sound. Inside, the low hum of machinery and the distant flicker of lights filled the space. A tall, shadowed figure stood at the far end of the room, waiting for him. As Cole entered, the door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. He didn't flinch. His eyes were fixed on the figure. "Cadet Adams," the figure said, its voice familiar. When it stepped into the light, Cole recognized Commander Rital immediately. "I didn't expect you to come." "I never turned down an invitation," Cole said, his voice steady. "What's this about?" Rital's eyes were narrowed as she studied him. "What happened in that chamber with the Vose and Hound?" It was unprecedented. The academy doesn't take kindly to things that go against the rules, cadet. Cole's eyes flickered with understanding. "You're worried about the implications." "It's more than that," Rital said, her tone low and serious. "There are forces here who see your actions as dangerous. You've made a mark, cadet, and people don't like being shown up, especially not by someone like you." "Someone like me," Cole repeated, raising an eyebrow. Rital's eyes hardened. "Human." Cole remained silent for a long moment, considering her words. "You don't have to worry about me. I'm not here to shake up anyone's world. I'm just trying to get through this academy." She shook her head slowly. It's not that simple. The academy isn't just a place of learning. It's a political machine. Your actions have stirred the pot, and now there are factions that want to use you or destroy you. Cole's stomach tightened at the weight of her words. He had known, deep down, that nothing this big could be as simple as surviving training. He had made himself a target without even realizing it. "What do you want from me?" Cole asked, his voice even. "I want to offer you a choice," Rital replied. "You have two paths ahead of you, and I'm the one who can guide you. You can choose to follow the Academy's rules, toe the line, and play it safe. Or," her voice dropped, her gaze never leaving his, "you can join me and my associates." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Associates?" Rital nodded slowly. "We're a group of people who understand the real power in this place. The politics, the alliances, the danger that's lurking behind the facade of the Academy. We need someone with your unique skills." Cole's mind raced. He had never planned to get involved in the Academy's politics. Survival had been his only goal. But now, with everything unfolding around him, he realized that there was more at stake than he had initially thought. "What's the catch?" he asked. "The catch is simple," Rital replied, her voice cold. "You will be part of a larger game now. If you accept, there's no going back. You will be used, you will be watched, and you will be protected until you're not." Cole took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words sink in. This was it, the choice he had been dreading, the moment where he would have to decide whether to become part of the machine or continue fighting against it. "I'm not here to be anyone's pawn," he said finally. "But I'm not backing down either. You're offering protection, but from who?" Rital's lips curled into a faint, knowing smile. "From everyone who might see you as a threat. The Vosen Hound was only the beginning, cadet. Now you're something far more valuable, and someone who's valuable always has enemies." Cole's heart raced as the implications of her words settled in. He wasn't just a cadet anymore. He was a player in a much larger game, and the rules were anything but clear. Rital stepped closer, her gaze intense. "So, what will it be? Will you join us, or will you let the Academy tear you apart?" For a moment, Cole didn't answer. He felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him, but there was no time to hesitate. He had already made his mark. Now, it was time to decide what kind of mark he would leave on this place. "I'll join you," Cole said, his voice firm, "but don't think I'll play by anyone's rules but my own." Rital's eyes flashed with approval. "Good, I knew you weren't a fool." Part 4, The Challenge. The following days were a blur of clandestine meetings and whispered conversations. Cole quickly realized that the Academy was not just a place of learning. It was a battlefield. Political intrigue, backstabbing, and manipulation ran rampant behind the scenes, and the cadets were nothing more than pawns in a much larger game. As promised, Rital introduced Cole to her associates, a group of elite cadets and instructors who had long since learned to navigate the treacherous waters of the Academy's power struggles. They didn't speak openly about their alliances, but it was clear that their loyalty to each other was unwavering. For the first time, Cole felt like he was part of something larger than himself. But there was a catch. The moment he had aligned himself with Rital's group, Cole had marked himself as a target. He could feel the eyes of the Academy's higher-ups on him, watching, waiting for him to slip up. He was no longer just a cadet. He was a symbol, a weapon, a challenge to the established order. And in the Academy's world, that made him dangerous. As the days went by, Cole trained harder than ever before. The Vosen Hound's submission had given him a taste of what was possible, but he knew that it was just the beginning. He wasn't about to let his new alliances define him. He would make his own way. But even as he pushed forward, Cole could feel the walls closing in. The Academy would never let someone like him go unchecked, and soon he would have to face the true cost of his decision. Cole's days blurred into a routine of training, clandestine meetings, and ever-watchful eyes. The Academy, which had once seemed like a place for learning and growth, now felt like a maze, its walls closing in as the stakes of his survival grew higher. He was no longer just another cadet. He was a symbol of defiance, and symbols had a habit of attracting danger. But Cole had made his choice. He had aligned himself with Rital and her associates, stepping into a world of politics and power he hadn't fully understood until now. The Vosen Hound's submission had been a turning point, proof that there was something different about him, something that made him more than just a human in a room full of aliens. It wasn't just his calm under pressure, it was his ability to see beyond the obvious. The beast had recognized that, and so did the Academy. But while Cole had made alliances, he also made enemies, and they were already waiting for him to slip. The first sign came during a routine physical test. The challenge was meant to assess a cadet's strength, agility, and reflexes, nothing Cole hadn't done countless times before. He stood at the starting line, feeling the cool breeze of the artificial training environment hit his face. The ground beneath him was smooth and slick, designed to mimic a real-world combat scenario. His fellow cadets, those who had once avoided him or whispered behind his back, stood at the sidelines, watching with mixed expressions of curiosity and apprehension. Cole wasn't bothered by their stares. He wasn't here to impress them. He wasn't even here to win. He was here to survive. As the starting signal sounded, Cole darted forward, his legs pumping powerfully as he navigated the obstacle course. Hurdles, walls, and pits appeared in rapid succession, but he moved with effortless precision. His body was in sync, his mind calm and calculating. There was no fear, no hesitation, only the rhythm of the test and the beat of his heart. But halfway through the course, something shifted. One of the cadets, a tall alien with elongated limbs named Zalrix, appeared in his path. The creature was fast, agile, and competitive by nature. Zalrix had been watching Cole closely ever since the Vose and Hound incident, and now, it seemed, it was his turn to test the human's limits. Without warning, Zalrix lunged toward Cole, attempting to block his path, a subtle move at first. But Cole saw it coming. He dodged to the side just in time, but as he did, Zalrix extended his foot, deliberately tripping Cole. For a split second, time seemed to slow as Cole's body twisted in midair, his muscles straining to regain control. But he wasn't about to let this happen. Not here, not now. With a quick roll, he planted his hands on the ground and pushed himself up, launching into a smooth, fluid motion that brought him back to his feet in an instant. Zalrix stood a few feet away, watching with an unreadable expression. The other cadets who had once been watching with indifference were now staring at him. It was a test, and Cole had passed it, barely. But Zalrix wasn't done. As Cole moved to finish the course, the alien cadet threw himself into his path again, this time trying to forcefully shove him out of the way. Cole's reflexes kicked in, and without a thought he ducked, sidestepped, and delivered a quick, precise elbow to Zalrix's chest. The force of the blow sent the alien stumbling backward, but he recovered quickly, his face twisted in something between anger and respect. "Not bad, human," Zalrix muttered, his voice low but edged with challenge. Cole didn't reply. He just continued forward, crossing the finish line with the same steady pace he'd begun with. The final test was over, but the tension in the air lingered. Rital watched from the observation deck, her arms crossed and her eyes sharp. She had seen the exchange, and though she remained outwardly calm, there was something flickering behind her eyes. This was more than a physical challenge. It was a warning. Zalrix had tested Cole's limits, but Cole had passed, not just because of his physical abilities, but because of his mind, his instincts. Cole wiped the sweat from his brow as he stood at the finish line, the room silent. The instructors took their time with the results, their eyes moving between Cole and the other cadets. There was no applause, no recognition for the speed or skill with which he had navigated the course. There were no words of praise. Instead, the tension in the room grew thick. Cole had proven himself again, but to whom? The others who had observed him, Zalrix included, now knew the truth. Cole was not someone to be underestimated. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was that Cole had made a point. He had made it clear that he wasn't just another cadet following the Academy's rules. He was rewriting the rules. Part 5, Behind Closed Doors. That evening, Cole found himself summoned once again, but this time not by Rital. The message had come from an anonymous source, someone who had a vested interest in what he had done in the training chamber. As Cole stepped into the darkened meeting room, he found himself facing the last person he expected, Zalrix. The alien's posture was different now, more calculated, more guarded. His previous arrogance had been replaced by something far more measured, as though he was trying to assess Cole on a deeper level. "You're a problem," Zalrix said, his voice rough but direct. Cole didn't respond immediately, his eyes narrowing. "What do you want?" Zalrix walked slowly toward him, his gaze never leaving Cole's face. "The Academy doesn't like problems, you've become one." He paused, then continued, his voice colder. "But we have a mutual interest now. There are factions here, Cadet Adams, people who want to see you fail, and people who want to see you succeed." "I'm not interested in your politics," Cole replied, his voice firm. Zalrix smirked, an unsettling glint in his eyes. That's the thing about this place. You don't get to choose. We all play by the same rules, or die trying to break them. You've broken the rules, Cole, and now you need to decide, are you going to take control or are you going to let the Academy control you? Cole stood silent for a moment, processing his words. I'll take control. Zalrix's smirk faded slightly, replaced by a look of caution. Good, but remember, control comes with consequences. They'll come for you sooner or later. And when they do, you'll have to decide whether you're still willing to face them head-on or if you'll play their game. Cole's gaze hardened. I've never played anyone's game. Then I suggest you start making allies, Zalrix warned, turning to leave. Because whether you like it or not, this fight has only just begun. As Zalrix disappeared into the shadows, Cole stood alone in the dimly lit room, the weight of his words pressing down on him. He had made his choice. He had made his mark. But now, more than ever, the cost of his survival was becoming clear. The Academy wasn't just a place to prove his strength. It was a battleground, and he was caught right in the middle of it. The Vosen Hound had been the first test, but this was the real fight. And Cole wasn't backing down. The room felt colder now that Zalrix had left. The walls, once unassuming, seemed to close in around Cole, the weight of the conversation settling heavily on his shoulders. He hadn't expected Zalrix to be the one who came to him, and the threat that lingered in his words gnawed at him. You'll have to decide. Are you going to take control, or are you going to let the Academy control you? Those words echoed in Cole's mind as he stood in the silence. This wasn't a game anymore. The Academy was a machine, and he had just placed himself in its gears. But unlike the others, Cole didn't intend to be crushed by the force of it. He would use it. He would make his own way, even if it meant playing a dangerous game. Cole turned and left the room, the door sliding shut behind him with a soft hiss. As he walked through the corridors, he knew that things were different now. The Academy was no longer a place where he could simply survive. He was going to have to fight on every front. The following day, Cole was summoned again, but this time the invitation came from Rital. The message was simple. Meet me in the training chamber. We need to discuss your future. When Cole arrived, he found Rital standing near the observation window, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. The room was dim, the only light coming from the holographic displays that flickered against the walls. The atmosphere felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. I've been hearing things, Cole, Rital said without turning to face him. About your performance in the last training session, about Zalrix's little stunt. Cole stepped forward, his gaze fixed on her. It's not the first time someone tried to trip me up. Rital nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing. And it won't be the last. You've made an impression, cadet, a dangerous one. People are talking. Let them talk, Cole replied. I'm not here to be liked. That's not what I'm worried about. Rital finally turned to face him, her eyes piercing. It's not about being liked, it's about being controlled, and if you don't make a choice soon, someone else will make it for you. Cole's heart skipped a beat. He could see the weight of her words, the hesitation in her gaze. The Academy was a place where power wasn't just about strength, it was about influence. And if Cole didn't seize control of his own path, someone else would. Control how? Cole asked, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. Rital's gaze softened just slightly before she spoke. You're too valuable to be left alone. They've noticed you. Your ability to tame the Vosen Hound, your adaptability, your refusal to follow the rules, those are all things people want to use. They will come for you one way or another. Cole thought about the warning Zalrix had given him. It wasn't a threat, it was a fact. He was no longer just a cadet. He was a player in a much bigger game. And if I refuse? Cole asked. Rital's lips curled into a faint smile. Then they'll come for you anyway. You'll be forced to choose, but you're smarter than that, aren't you? I don't play games, Cole said, his voice firm. I survive. Rital looked at him for a long moment, as if measuring his every word. Finally, she nodded. Good, but survival here isn't just about brute strength. It's about making the right alliances, knowing who to trust and when to strike. Cole nodded, understanding the depth of the decision before him. Who can I trust? Rital's eyes flickered to the far corner of the room, where a new training module had been set up. Not everyone here has your best interests at heart, but I've been watching you, Cole. You're different from the others. You have the potential to change things, to make your mark on this place. But that won't happen if you keep walking this path alone. She paused, her voice lowering. I'm offering you something that could make you more than just a survivor. You don't have to be anyone's pawn, but you'll have to decide soon. The Academy won't wait forever. Cole took a deep breath, his mind racing. He knew what Rital was offering him. Power, influence, a chance to shape his own future, but it came with a cost. The Academy wasn't a place where you could rise without stepping on others, and Cole had already made enemies. Would he risk it all for a chance to lead, or would he continue to fight on his own terms? I'll think about it, Cole said, his voice calm but resolute. Rital nodded approvingly. I knew you would, but don't take too long. Time is something the Academy has in abundance. You, however, do not. Part 6, The Unseen Hand. That night, Cole found himself lying awake in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. The weight of Rital's words lingered in his mind. The Academy was a world of politics, a battlefield where alliances were forged and broken on a whim, and Cole had just been thrust into the middle of it. The question was no longer about surviving the Academy. It was about surviving its politics. But there was something else, something deeper that gnawed at him. He had felt it before in his bones during his encounter with the Vosen Hound. The Academy was about control, yes, but it was also about knowledge, understanding the game, knowing who held the strings, and knowing when to pull them. As Cole sat up in bed, his mind churned. He wasn't here just to play by the rules, he was here to make them. The door to his quarters slid open, and a figure stepped inside. It was Zalrix. You've made a choice, haven't you? Zalrix's voice was low, almost conspiratorial. Cole didn't answer immediately. He had known this conversation would come. You could say that. You've joined the game, Zalrix continued, his voice filled with a mixture of respect and wariness. And now you need to know there are no alliances here. Not really, just power. You want to survive, you need to make sure you have enough to hold on to. Cole turned to face him, his eyes cold. I don't need your advice, Zalrix. The alien grinned, a sharp, predatory smile that sent a chill down Cole's spine. You think you've got it all figured out? You've barely scratched the surface. You've earned the respect of the right people, but there are others, people who don't forget. Cole stood up, his gaze steady. I didn't come here to make friends, Zalrix. I came here to survive. And that's why you're going to need allies, Zalrix said, his voice dropping. And enemies, both are coming for you. The question is, who are you going to let in your corner? Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. Zalrix had made his point. The Academy wasn't just about survival, it was about understanding who controlled the power, and who was waiting for you to make a mistake. Part 7, The Price of Survival. The next few days passed in a blur. Cole continued his training, his mind sharpened by the conversations he'd had with Zalrix and Rital. He could feel the tension mounting, the weight of his choices settling in as he navigated through the Academy's rigid structure. But there was one thing Cole knew for sure. The time for playing it safe was over. Rital's offer was more than just an opportunity, it was a lifeline, and Cole was beginning to see the truth behind her words. To survive here, he would need more than just physical strength. He would need influence, connections, and a willingness to do what others weren't willing to do. One night, as the stars flickered in the sky outside, Cole made his decision. The Academy was a machine, but he was going to be the one to break it. The next morning, he met Rital in the training chamber once more. She didn't ask him any questions. She simply looked at him, a faint, knowing smile tugging at the corners of her lips. You made your choice, she said, her voice low and filled with something that resembled pride. Good, now let's get to work. And as Cole stepped into the unknown, he understood one thing: the battle for control had just begun. But this time, he would be the one calling the shots. The weeks that followed were a blur of calculated moves and subtle alliances. Cole's decision to align himself with Rital's faction marked a turning point, not just in his journey through the Academy, but in the way he saw the galaxy. This wasn't just about surviving the tests or even about proving his worth to the others. It was about control. And now, Cole was ready to seize it. But control didn't come without its price. As Cole's reputation spread, he found himself in the midst of a complex web of shifting loyalties. Rital's group wasn't the only faction interested in his abilities, and soon, Cole realized that the Academy's undercurrents were much deeper than he had ever anticipated. The first real challenge came in the form of an invitation, this time from an unexpected source. It was late at night when Cole received the encrypted message. the transmission so carefully hidden that it took him a moment to decipher. It was from someone within the higher echelons of the academy, someone who knew exactly what he had done with the Vosen Hound. Cadet Adams, you've made quite a name for yourself. You are requested at the council meeting tomorrow. There are those who believe you've earned more than just a passing glance. Consider this an opportunity to solidify your future. The message was unsigned, but the implication was clear. The game was about to get far more complex. The Academy's council was the highest authority on the station. Their word was law. To be called to a council meeting meant that Cole had caught the eye of someone who could either make or break him. The next day, Cole found himself standing in a grand, opulent chamber far beneath the Academy's training levels. The walls were lined with hollow projectors displaying various star maps, complex formulas, and tactical grids. In the center of the room stood a large, oval table, surrounded by alien figures, some familiar, some unknown. Rital stood beside him, her presence a silent support, though Cole could feel the weight of the moment. The council members were a mixture of alien species, their faces cold and impassive. One of them, an insectoid being with 6 arms and no visible eyes, spoke first. "Cadet Adams," it said, its voice reverberating through the room. "You have gained considerable attention. Your actions with the Vosen Hound have raised questions. Some of us believe that you've demonstrated an ability to control a creature known for its absolute dominance." Cole kept his expression neutral, though inside, a surge of adrenaline rushed through him. This was the moment, the one he had been waiting for. "Control?" he asked, his voice steady. "I didn't control the hound, I simply showed it that I wasn't prey." There was a shift in the room, subtle but palpable. Some of the council members exchanged glances. One, a tall humanoid with shimmering blue skin, leaned forward. "You have a rare gift, Cadet Adams," the humanoid said, its voice calm but full of intent. "But rare gifts can also be dangerous. You've made a statement with that display, one that cannot be ignored. Your reputation precedes you now, and your future here at the Academy, well, it is now in your hands." Cole didn't speak. He merely met their gaze, unwilling to show any hint of fear. This was just another test, another game to be played. But this time he wasn't playing by anyone else's rules. Another voice, sharp and metallic, came from a figure at the far end of the table. "There is, however, a risk. We cannot allow one cadet to wield so much influence, not without ensuring that they do not upset the balance of power. The Academy is built on tradition, and tradition is not something we bend easily. We must test him further." Cole's eyes flicked to Rital, who gave him a slight nod, her expression unreadable. He had already known this would happen. They would test him, challenge him to see if he could survive the Academy's game. But what they didn't know was that Cole had already made up his mind. He wasn't here to be tested. He was here to control the tests. "You want to test me?" Cole asked, his voice cutting through the tension. "Then let's test, but know this, I won't play by your rules." There was a moment of silence. The council members exchanged sharp glances, some looking surprised, others intrigued. The insectoid creature at the head of the table, who seemed to be the leader, finally spoke. "Very well, Cadet Adams. If you truly believe you are ready, then we will give you a challenge worthy of your abilities. We will see if you can survive what comes next." Part 7, The Trial of Power. The challenge came swiftly after the council meeting. Rital had warned him that it would be brutal, but Cole was unprepared for just how far the Academy was willing to push him. That evening, as the stars outside the observation windows blinked softly in the distance, Cole found himself standing at the entrance to the arena. The doors slid open, revealing a massive space that felt like a cross between a gladiatorial pit and a high-tech laboratory. The floor was littered with obstacles, spiked traps, mechanical beasts, and weapons scattered across the arena. It was an environment meant to test both mind and body, survival and strategy. Rital was there, standing in the shadows near the entrance. Her eyes were sharp, but her expression was unreadable. "This is the trial of power," she said quietly, her voice laced with something akin to respect. "You will face not just physical tests, but mental ones. The council needs to see if you have what it takes to lead, and whether you can outthink your opponents and survive." Cole stepped forward into the arena, his heart pounding in his chest, but his mind clear. The lights above flickered, then the doors behind him slammed shut, sealing him inside. A voice echoed through the arena, cold and robotic. "Welcome to the trial of power, Cadet Adams. The objective is simple: survive. You will face creatures, obstacles, and traps designed to test your limits. There are no allies here, only your wits, your instincts, and your will to survive. The voice paused, and Cole could hear the hum of the machinery beginning to shift around him, the arena coming to life. Let the trial begin. Almost immediately, a series of mechanical beasts, sleek spider-like creatures, crawled from the shadows, their red eyes glowing ominously as they skittered across the arena floor. They were fast, deadly, and relentless. The first one lunged at him with a speed that would have caught most off guard. But Cole was already moving. He ducked low, rolling under the beast as its claws slammed into the floor, leaving gouges in the metal. He didn't hesitate. The next step was critical. He had no weapons, no tools, just his mind and his training. Cole scanned the arena, noting the weapons scattered along the edges. But he couldn't just rush toward them. The beasts were too close, and there was no guarantee they wouldn't trap him before he got to them. Instead, Cole's eyes flicked toward the far wall of the arena, where he saw a small gap in the structure, a weak point, one that could be used to his advantage. He sprinted towards it, weaving through the mechanical beasts, narrowly dodging their attacks. The creatures hissed and clicked as they followed, relentless in their pursuit. As Cole reached the gap, he dove into it just as a beast's claw swiped past him, narrowly missing his leg. The creatures hesitated at the opening, unable to fit through the narrow space. They screeched in frustration, but Cole was already thinking ahead. There was a control panel in the corner of the arena. He could see it through the small gap, its lights flashing green. It was a long shot, but it was his best option. Cole knew the trial wasn't just about surviving the beasts. It was about outsmarting them. It was about proving that he could think his way out of any situation, and that's exactly what he was going to do. Mark's heart pounded as the ship rocketed toward the outer rim colonies. The explosion he had seen on the radar was no accident, an unmistakable sign that the reclamation forces had already begun their assault. His pulse quickened with every passing second as the countdown to humanity's fate continued. The Genesis Protocol was now the most dangerous weapon in existence, and Mark couldn't shake the feeling that everything he had worked for, everything humanity had worked for, was on the brink of being destroyed. He wasn't sure what to expect when he arrived. Would he face an entire fleet, or was the Genesis Protocol already in play, its devastating power tearing through the colonies as they spoke? There was no time to waste. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. The ship's systems beeped, pulling him out of his thoughts. A low hum signaled the arrival of a new transmission. Mark's breath caught as he saw Admiral Carter's face flash on the screen. Her image was distorted, clearly struggling to maintain a stable connection. "Mark, you're just in time," Carter's voice crackled, filled with urgency. "We've received word from Earth's command center. The reclamation forces are about to unleash the Genesis Protocol. They've found it. They've located the facility beneath the surface, and they're moving in fast." Mark's grip on the controls tightened. "I'm almost there," he replied, his voice steady despite the panic rising within him. "Do they have access to the full weapon?" "I don't know," Carter answered, her expression strained. "But we believe they've unlocked the activation key. If they release it, they could control the very fabric of humanity's history, and they'll use it to decimate anyone who stands in their way." The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on Mark's chest. The Genesis Protocol had always been designed to be a last resort, an ultimate weapon, one that could either uplift or obliterate civilizations. And now, Earth's darkest secret was in the hands of the very people who had come to represent humanity's greatest fear. A faction that believed Earth should dominate, not coexist. "Carter, I need every possible resource from Earth's fleet," Mark said, his voice hardening with resolve. "I'm going in alone, but I'll need backup once we breach the facility. They can't launch the protocol, not while I'm still breathing." A flicker of acknowledgement passed across Carter's face. "We'll deploy a fleet, but it may take time. They're already engaged in heavy combat with the colonies. You'll need to move quickly. I can't promise backup on time, Mark. This has to end with you." "I'll make it end," he said, his eyes hard as he locked onto the image of the distant reclamation fleet on the radar. "I'll make it end now." The final assault. As Mark's ship reached the outer rim, the battle between the reclamation forces and the colonies intensified. The deep, resonating hum of space battles rumbled through the hull as explosions and laser fire lit up the vast, empty expanse. Mark's heart raced in sync with the chaos unfolding outside. He had seen war before. He had fought in Earth's most brutal conflicts. But this was different. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about preventing humanity from becoming the very monster it had been trying to avoid. Mark's ship zipped through the chaos, weaving between the outer rim's defenses as he pushed forward toward the hidden facility, the Genesis Protocol's birthplace. The planet-side structures lay in ruins, decimated by the power of the reclamation forces' weapons. It was clear they had already set their sights on the protocol. "This is it," Mark muttered under his breath, narrowing his eyes as he focused on the facility's coordinates. His hands moved across the control panel, adjusting for the final approach. "I won't let them use it." The moment he landed, the urgency of the situation hit him full force. The once pristine planetary surface was now a war zone, buildings collapsed, and smoke rose from craters as if the planet itself was on the verge of dying. But Mark didn't flinch. He stepped out of the ship, his boots crunching against the cracked earth as he looked toward the entrance of the underground facility. The Genesis Protocol's vault was there, buried beneath the surface, waiting to be activated by the very people who were trying to destroy the galaxy. As he approached, the air around him seemed to grow colder. A shadow loomed over him, the enemy, and it was coming closer. The sounds of distant explosions grew louder, signaling that the battle was escalating. But Mark was focused on one thing now. He had to reach the vault, destroy the Genesis Protocol, and stop the reclamation forces from bringing humanity's greatest weapon into the light. He activated the facility's doors with a quick swipe of his hand on the control panel. It slid open, and Mark entered, his pulse quickening with each step. He was in. But there was no turning back now. Inside, the massive chamber was dimly lit, with shadows stretching long across the metallic floors. In the distance, a faint glow illuminated a row of consoles. The Genesis Protocol was just a few steps away. Mark moved swiftly, his eyes scanning for any sign of the enemy. It didn't take long. The reclamation forces were already here, soldiers in dark combat gear, their weapons aimed directly at Mark. Their leader, a tall, imposing figure wearing the insignia of the reclamation forces, stepped forward. Mark's hand instinctively reached for his weapon, but he hesitated. "You're too late," the leader sneered, his voice cold and filled with contempt. "Humanity is ours to reclaim. We will reshape this galaxy in our image." Mark didn't respond. He didn't have to. He knew what needed to be done. Without warning, he drew his weapon, firing at the nearest soldier with precision, taking them down in a single shot. The room erupted into chaos as the reclamation forces retaliated. Mark moved quickly, using his training to evade the fire, ducking behind columns and taking out his enemies one by one. But they were relentless. As the battle raged on, Mark pushed forward, his body bruised and bloodied but his resolve unbroken. He was close now. He could see the vault's control panel, its lights flashing as if urging him to act. The leader lunged at him, his weapon raised, but Mark was faster. He spun around, knocking the leader off balance before delivering a devastating blow that sent him crashing to the ground. Mark didn't hesitate. He sprinted to the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys as he input the override code. The system beeped loudly, and a red light began flashing. The protocol was activating. Time was running out. Cliffhanger. The sound of alarms filled the chamber, and the facility's walls began to tremble. Mark's heart pounded in his chest as the countdown to the Genesis Protocol's activation flashed before him. He had seconds. "No," he shouted, slamming his fist against the console. The countdown kept ticking down. Then, just as the final numbers flashed on the screen, the entire facility plunged into darkness. The last thing Mark saw was the cold, empty stare of the vault's control system. He had failed. But as he collapsed to his knees, everything went silent, except for one final, haunting message that echoed in his ears. "We will reclaim everything, Earth."